is Bucks in 60.
What in the world, Giannis?
Bucks in 60.
Three-pointer flies. And he's got another one. Damian Lillard doing what he does.
It's Bucks in 60.
The long wait has ended. After a half century, the Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions once again.
Now here's your host, Trey Crosby.
We are live. 97 through the game, worldwide iHeartRadio, on the game, everywhere. Milwaukee, Madison, doing what we do. It's another edition of Bucks in 60. It's the guru, Trey Crosby III.
JT.
And our producer, Andrew, is in the building doing what he does. Appreciate everybody joining us tonight. This is going to serve, we always have Bucks in 60, but tonight, this will serve as a pregame show as the Bucks have a tilt coming up, almost underway, about an hour away from tip, in the 5-serve form against the Los Angeles Clippers. JT, a late scratch, Giannis Antetokounmpo. We'll talk about Giannis being a late scratch tonight. I saw some tweets coming out from folks saying that, they can't go to games all the time. It's unfortunate always, when guys do have to miss. This one does seem like a legitimate injury. This isn't just one of those things where, they planned an absence or nagging. It sounds like Giannis went through his pregame routine and just in the middle of it started to stretch, started to feel a little, maybe a little discomfort going on. He's had, I believe they said it was his left Achilles is what they've been saying, or something like that. I had to double check. Somebody let us know, 414-799-1973.
7-3.
Let us know in the chat if you exactly what the injury is. I have to look it up. But yeah, Giannis is going to be out tonight. Again, it's unfortunate for the paying customers who, the Bucks are about to embark on a West Coast trip. The Bucks have been playing, very well. They're on a 5-game win streak right now. Probably, you'd say one of the, you probably say the Celtics are the hottest team in the NBA, but the Bucks are one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. You're thinking, you're going to get this opportunity to see the Bucks line up with the Clippers. Paul George is active. Kawhi Leonard active. James Harden active. You're thinking this is going to be one of these premier nights in the NBA. Game is on NBA TV. And then, of course, before this thing starts, and again, I can't blame Giannis. He's only missed. This is be his third missed game all year. So it's just an unfortunate issue that we are not going to be able to see a primetime marquee matchup with the surging Milwaukee Bucks. Doc Rivers on the 5-game win streak at full strength. Well, they wouldn't have been at full strength anyway because Chris Middleton's still out. We got to talk about his injury too. Chris Middleton's been out for a month. But we'll hold the horses before we get to Chris. Just really quickly before we start, kind of where we are here. Giannis being a late scratch for the Bucks tonight against the Clippers.
That's a tough one, right? But that means that listen, that means Superman, right? We said we got Batman and Superman. Okay, Superman, right? Superman would be Dame Lillard in this case. Man, let's put this team on your back tonight, right? Great opportunity for Dame Lillard to kind of get back on track, right? Even though he's played better since the All-Star break, but it's really a great night for us to see Dame time, right? This is why you have him in the building. So neither guy has to shoulder the load themselves, right? They can both spread this thing out. Also, though, this is an opportunity for Doc to get these rotations right. Come on, Derry Bird, let's see him tonight, right? The Derry Bird, come on now. And for those of y'all who are new to the show, Derry Bird is AJ Green, right? That's what we call him, right? This is a great night to see that. Bobby Portis, who's been shooting over 50%, and I believe it's 6 out of the last 10 games or so. Great night for him to see it, right? Let's see what you got. Patrick Beverley, who we've seen giving offensive contributions. This is another night for that. Let's see that too.
Yeah, I'm with you. You do want to see all those things. You know what I'd like to see? You're rattling off guys with 2 players who play, when they're healthy, would play over 30 minutes. Giannis almost upwards, 35 plus minutes. It would be nice to see maybe one of those guys, maybe a guy named Marjan Bulchet, maybe a guy named Andre Jackson Jr., maybe one of those guys. It'd be nice to see as well when you're this far down the rotation. Who knows? But Doc Rivers has had the answer. He's had the key. He has had the medicine, giving out the prescriptions lately. JT started off his tenure with the Bucks 3-7. The Bucks rattled off 5 wins. They are now 5 wins in a row. They're now 8-7 after a 5-game win streak. With wins over during the streak. You've beaten the make sure I get this all the way correct here. You beat the Timberwolves, the 76ers, the Hornets twice, and the Bulls. In 4 of those 5 games, John Tyus, you've held your opponent under 100 points, 98, 85, 99, and 97 respectively to those opponents. Doc Rivers seems to have turned a corner a little bit with this basketball team. What have you seen from this? What have you seen from the Milwaukee Bucks on a 5-game win streak that gets you excited, gives you some newfound energy and confidence in this basketball team?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to, just so we acknowledge this, right? In 4 out of those 5 games, the Bucks have not only hold opponents to under 100 points, but they've also won by double digits. Let's go ahead and make sure we put some respect on what Doc is doing at this point. So, want to make that point. Second thing I've seen, right? I've seen Damian Lillard play better overall. Now, he's not necessarily shot better from the field, right? Which, by the way, it's not just, we're not just saying that. Statistically speaking, he's shooting at about 42% this year, which is the 3rd lowest of his career, right? So it's not, we're not thing up. Right? Conversely, from 3, he's shooting about 34%, which is also the 3rd lowest of his career too. Despite the fact that his attempts remain relatively, they're a little bit off. 2nd lowest attempts since around 2014, 2015-ish, which I get it, right? But you would think on a lower number of attempts, you certainly would have maybe a higher percentage. Maybe not, right? It's not the way it always works, but just want to make that point. But when we talk about this win streak, right? Like, what have we seen? Well, we've seen a couple things. One, Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis has been consistent for the most part. Yes, there's been a couple of shooting nights that haven't been great, but his shot selection has been a lot better. That's the first thing. Second thing we've seen, Malik Beasley. We've seen Malik Beasley show up for the most part. And I want to stop here for a second because Malik Beasley, who was a 20-point scorer, right, as 2019, 2020, around that time, he's averaged 20 points a game. We've now seen him be relegated to just being a sharpshooter at this point, right? Spot up, hit the 3 when we give you the shot. We give you that look, right? But I want to make this point too. We've seen Malik Beasley also attempt to play defense, and I think using a substantial amount more effort and instincts. And we've seen effort from him and from Dame, which has changed some of the looks on the perimeter. Third thing we've seen, we have seen role players. We've seen the Pat Bev effect. We've seen Patrick Beverley get out there, get after people, hit buckets on offense, momentum changing plays here, getting things going. We've seen Derry Bird giving contributions as well. And I think overall we've seen Doc kind of figure out what this team can and can't do and put guys in position to succeed.
Yeah, no, you have seen a ton of that. I think, defensively, you've seen a team that has defensively, you've seen a team that looks definitely much better. They look more connected. They have they look like like I said, Doc Rivers did this thing where he went down the line, gave everybody their roles, told everybody what they're supposed to be doing. They look like a team that has defined roles. That knows where it's supposed to be. It's not missing assignments as you saw earlier on in the season. And so, again, I think that helps everything defensively. I think, again, he has simplified the defense a little bit as well. And then when you look on the other side of the offense, I think even though they're not scoring at the rate they were scoring with Adrian Griffin at the helm, this offense is more deliberate, right? Like, it seems like there is a more concerted effort for Damian Lillard to bring the ball up, almost, I don't say every single time, but a majority of the time, Damian Lillard is the guy bringing the ball up the court. He is running the offense. Now, has that also coincided with Chris Middleton being out for the majority of this period? Yes, it has. We'll see what happens when Chris Middleton does arrive back in uniform and playing. But, some of those things, again, like I said, we talk about the scoring output not being what it was. The pace is also slower, which indicates that this is a team that's now almost like they're gearing up for what happens in the playoffs and in the postseason. And in the postseason, that's why we talk about the Indiana Pacers. Why I don't think that style of basketball works. You're not running up the floor, zigzagging down the floor at 100 miles an hour. That's not how the postseason works. You got to be able to play a half-court offense. You got to be able to run your sets. You got to be able to execute in the half court. And the Bucks, even though their pace has slowed, scoring has slowed, they're still scoring and executing in the half court. But let's go to a guy that you mentioned, John Tyus. You mentioned Mr. Lonely, Damian Lillard. And I have to ask you this question because this has come up. We hadn't talked about it since our last time we had our Bucks in 60. It's the unseen side of a blockbuster NBA trade. Milwaukee Bucks guard Damian Lillard said he had no regrets about his big boy decision to seek a trade after 11 years with the Portland Trail Blazers. But the transition has been, quote, tough for the newly single NBA star who filed for his divorce from his college sweetheart, Kayla Lillard, in October of 2023, a week after he was dealt from Portland to Milwaukee. He said this, quote, "It's definitely lonely because I'm such a family guy. My life is my family. After games, I would come out and my whole family would go back there. My kids coming out of the playroom, my mom, my brother, my cousins live there. You know what I mean?" Lillard his family has 3 children. They attended the All-Star game where he won the MVP and was the winner of the 3-point contest. He talked about his best friends living in Portland. He'd come out, they go to dinner, they go to his house, might go to his mom's and chill. That's how life was. So, I mean, I'm fine because I'm grown, but it's definitely lonely. I'm filled up by those people. Those were some of the Damian Lillard quotes from the Chris Mannix Sports Illustrated article that came out. John, I want, and again, there's a lot of fanfare around it. Of course, what took place was, those were his words. He did put them into some type of context, but when he does that, the mainstream media then takes those quotes, and the headline wasn't Damian Lillard suffering without his family. It wasn't Damian Lillard, adjusting to life. Newly single. The headline was Damian Lillard bored in Milwaukee. That was the overarching theme that came across on the social media platforms and waves. JT, when you see things like that, when you see the article, and again, this comes on the heels of him not having Giannis in his top 5. In his top 5, they asked him who not his top 5, but the guys he wanted to play with, a starting 5. When it comes on the heels of that, when it comes on the heels of him talking about his struggles and not playing as well as he should be playing, and going back even to before the trade where he got bad press for trying to force his way out of Portland and to Miami. When you see this quote and these continued quotes about Damian Lillard and his feelings, what does that say to you? What do you think about that?
Well, the first thing is that I think that I understand that, how the importance of family, the importance of friends, the importance of a community, right? For a lot of athletes, especially because a lot of these guys, I think, feel isolated. They're in bubbles in some way, shape, or form, just because they can't do the things that you and I can do, right? They can't just run to Target, right? They can't go to the mall. They can't do some of this stuff because of the fanfare. And I completely understand that. And I see where Dame's coming from there. Where you lose me is this, though. You can't talk about how your family, your kids, everything was the most important thing for you in Portland, and you had this community and how happy you were when you're the one who forced your way out of Portland, right? Like, if it was so great, why did you want to leave? Because you tried to force your way to Miami. Right now, Miami didn't want to play ball because Miami was not interested in giving Portland what they wanted for you to bring you in. But Dame is the one who forced his way out of Miami. So I do find it hard to reconcile that, Zach. Well, now he's talking about how he had it so good in Portland, right? And now he's lonely now. When if it was so good, why did you want to leave, right? It sounds to me like you were comfortable with losing, right? Again, how many times your parents told you careful what you wish for, right? Like, you already know, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it, right? So that's the first thing. Here's the real issue, though. The real issue is that I think Dame has not played up to the standard that we all hold Dame to, which is a standard he created for himself, right? You have a top 75 guy. You have one of the best basketball players in NBA history here. An 8-time, or was a 9-time now NBA All-Star, right? But Dame is, again, 3rd lowest career field goal shooting percentage, 3rd lowest 3-point shooting percent. This does not make sense because you're on the best team that you've been on before, right? Like, so, but here's the thing. Bucks fans still support him. We're still excited about him, right? We've embraced this man. We had a parade for Dame before he dribbled a basketball for Milwaukee. Remember that parade when he was carrying his kids? And it was, I think it actually went down. It was like, what, an hour and a half late or something, right? But everybody was still out there supporting this man, cheering for this man. And as fans, we still want to see him succeed, and still we know what he can bring to the table. So we haven't lost faith in Dame. But on the same note, what you can't do is knee fans in the groin every chance you get by taking subtle shots about how bored you are, how uncomfortable you are in Milwaukee, when the city and the team that you're playing for has done everything possible to make sure that you are comfortable. And they've done everything possible to make sure you feel embraced. So, Dame, I'm going to need you to figure this out, right? He talked about going home and and playing video games and watching boxing videos and sitting around his mansion all day, well, great. How about we get up out that house, right? You're not the first guy to go through a divorce or go through any of this stuff and missing your kids, but you got a whole community of people who will embrace you and make sure you feel comfortable. What you can't do is be the recluse that goes and sits in his apartment all day, and we sitting here wondering about how you're dealing, how you're trying to cope with your mental health, how you're trying to change things for yourself, right? Well, everybody is expecting you to do what you've been doing for the last 10 years.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I think you said it best there. At some point, it's going to be about how he plays. That's the end of the thing. That's the end of that's where we draw the line. That's how it's going to go. And again, I think a lot of it to me kind of comes across as excuse making for poor play. That's what I hear when I hear all these woe is me. I just have a hard time thinking that if Dame was having a year like Giannis was having, I have a hard time thinking this article comes out that he's talking about how bored he is, how lonely he is, and how this is such a hard transition. Because and so again, I think all of it goes back to play and how you play and how you perform, and ultimately this trade, how he views it, how the Bucks view it, how the fans view it. Ultimately, it will all come down to what happens in late April, May, and hopefully into June. That's what's going to give you all the answers as to was this a good trade, was it a bad trade, is everybody comfortable? That's what's going to happen. However this plays out, whatever happens. And again, Damian Lillard at the end of the day is going to have to perform no matter what. Family there, family not there. You have to perform. Miami, Portland, Milwaukee. Hey, if you're on South Beach or McKinley Beach, you got to get it done. That's how it has to happen. So let's take a break right here. We'll come back. We'll talk about some more as the Bucks get ready for a tilt with the LA Clippers tonight. Still Steve Ballmer. They got the new logo. It looks like a Carnival Cruise. Looks like a new Carnival Cruise Line design that the Clippers have going on. But again, getting ready for that. 414-799-1973.
7-3.
That's it. That Trey's for our Spanish listeners. Call, text, whatever you got to do. Get it in as you head to the 5-star forum. Let us know how you're feeling. Back at more Bucks in 60 on the Game Raptors.
Going at some mother, cause a young handsome mother. Got to sling that wood, I just nunchuck them and who you with, and what's your name?
We're back live. 97.3 The Game, worldwide iHeartRadio, all over the game, statewide here. Bucks in 60 doing what we do. It's the guru, Trey Crosby III. JT's in the building. Chris King is on the text line saying, Dame, relax on the podcast, big dog. So appreciate the Chris King watching as always. Again, you can catch us. This is a pregame show right now, Bucks in 60 on The Game. Of course, you can catch us after the game at the Cream City Crossover. Go to YouTube, Cream City Crossover. Follow, subscribe, all that good stuff for us. And join us post-game for a fun edition of the Cream City Crossover, where we will go dive into everything that took place tonight in the battle against the Los Angeles Clippers. Again, no Giannis tonight, as we talked about earlier in the program, with left Achilles tendonitis. So again, that's just unfortunate that he's not going to be there and able to play tonight. But I do want to talk about another guy who's not going to be available, not going to play tonight. And that guy is Chris Middleton, right? Chris Middleton Chris Middleton went out with a left ankle, with I believe it was a left ankle sprain on February the 6th. So about 4 weeks ago, Chris Middleton went out. But actually, first let's do a call first. We'll come back to Chris Middleton. Turd Ferguson is on hold. Turd Ferguson wants to talk about Dame. Turd, what's going on? You're on Bucks at 60.
How you doing? I think you kind of buried the lead a little bit with the Dame thing, and I'm going to come at it from a personal perspective. Going through a divorce is a lot more than people think, especially if it's been a long-term relationship. I just did it. It threw me completely for a loop, upended everything. Your friends start to divide along the teams, so to speak. I don't put it past that to be the root cause of a lot of what Dame's going through. I mean, not having friends and stuff like that in Milwaukee is a thing, but his family didn't move him, and that's a first for him, and that's a big deal for a guy like that. So it's not easy to deal with what he's dealing with and try and be the stud that he is on the court. I think the more time goes by, the better he'll be.
Turd, I think you're, I'm right there with you. I agree that, it is definitely a tough thing that you have to maneuver through. Let me ask you this. Do you still think at the end of the day, and I get you saying you think it will get better as time goes on. And I think that's generally the case with most things. Time heals all wounds, as they say. But Turd, I want to ask you, is it fair still to question his play, or is it still fair to criticize his play no matter the personal issues that he's going through? Or do you think that that fans and people almost have to give Damian Lillard a pass for poor performances? And if that's the way you feel, at what point are you able to criticize for poor performance?
To be honest with you, I think it's fair post All-Star break to start looking at some things, but I will also point out, and Dame has said this himself, when he was in Portland, he didn't bother to spend any energy or effort or anything on defense. And he's been having to do that in Milwaukee. And if you look at his numbers, he's actually defending better than Drew Holiday was, or is right now. So there's a couple of things at play. But as far as criticism of his offensive game, post All-Star break is when I'd start to say, okay, you got your sea legs, the shock of it is all over with. You got friends on the roster. Things will start to normal out. And if you look at his post All-Star numbers, they're getting much better, to be honest with you. But the fact that he's also got to play defense, fans have to realize that he expends a lot of energy now on the defensive end of the court that he never did before. He was just a scorer, and now he's a complete ball player. So what you're going to see is a little bit different than what you're used to in Portland. And I don't think the trade was bad. I think it was a net positive. He fits the locker room. He's a team guy, as he's showing by playing defense. So I think everybody just needs to get off his back a little bit and let him develop his game with this new set of playing on both ends that he's got to deal with.
Okay, Terry, hey, we appreciate the call. Good stuff there from Terry Ferguson. JT, you want to respond at all to Damian Lillard, and going through a divorce and how that impacts you as a player?
Well, so I appreciate what Turd indicated, because he's humanizing this, right? He's telling folks, listen, this is a lot more serious than it sounds like, right? Because it's something that, right? This, unfortunately, our families go through this too, right? So that's one thing, and I certainly think he's right. You give him a bit of a break from performance and play when he says that. Where I do think you lose people, though, is, again, when you talk about the previous interview and he's saying some of this stuff when he talked about his top 5, right? And then he's talking about some of this stuff here in Milwaukee, and when he's speaking about it, it feels like, okay, wait a minute, right? So are you taking a shot here, right? What are you doing? Are you just being overly candid? What's the objective here? Because I do think it's reasonable to expect a 10-year vet to be media savvy enough to know that what you say is maybe taken out of context. What you say is going to be repeated a ton of different times. And you got to know, man, listen, podcasts, those are intimate settings where people can usually get more out of you during a podcast than an actual interview, right? If it's a major network, if it's the game, if it's ESPN or what have you. So, yeah, I get that. I have empathy for Dame, missing his family, missing his kids. But listen, we got to be smarter about the stuff that we say here, because you may create issues that you really don't need to.
Yeah, that's my thing. It's not as much about, and I totally, and I agree with her, that, your feelings and how you're playing can definitely be validated, with what's going on in your personal life. But yeah, my thing is, when you are talking about those things publicly, and we know that even when you're going through a divorce, that becomes public information. But it's probably best to not give sound bites and quotables that people can even run with and take away and take them out of context. Again, because that's what people will do. And it creates narratives that may not necessarily be true. And I don't necessarily think that Dame was trying to create that narrative, but when you say things, that's how they come out. So again, I think all things can be true. Got a text here. UPS John says, "Hey guys, do you think that when Middleton comes back, excuse me, that the team would be more balanced if he moved into the 6-man role? He could be the lead scorer with the second unit when he initially comes in the game, and certainly could be on the floor in the fourth quarter." So I want to take UPS John's point and kind of expand upon the fact that two things here. So, and it's a little bit separate, two things, because it's on Chris Middleton. One, Chris has been out with this left ankle sprain. He jumped in and got it. There was a flagrant on Kevin Durant during the Suns game, like I said, about 4 weeks ago, where Chris Middleton was injured. He has not returned since then. Now, again, I've had ankle sprains. John, I'm sure you've had ankle sprains. 4 weeks is that, can it get to 4 weeks? Yeah. But a month on an ankle sprain from a guy who has lower extremity injuries that have added up throughout the years, it's not the best of things. I'm not saying that it's over in any capacity. I'm not saying that about Chris. I'm just saying that, you'd like for him to bounce back a little bit quicker. I think you have people on the other side that say, no, he needs all this time to heal. And I get some of that, but I'm just talking about it before I go into how Chris Middleton should look when he comes back and what his role should be. I want to get into the injury piece of it. And you think 4 weeks is about the right amount of time for an extended ankle injury. And Doc Rivers said, hey, it looks like, about the time it's going to be back. And I think he didn't do as much work yesterday or something as he had done, a couple days before. But that was an issue for him, right? And so I don't know. I just have a feeling that Chris has got to get this together from an injury perspective, because again, Chris, in my opinion, Chris was having these problems with his ankle. And I guess where I'm going with this is when he had these ankle issues, the team. I'm sorry, I got some noise in my head, and I got off track here. But yeah, no, I got you. But yeah, so the team. But yeah, so I was going. He had 30 games that he was out with the injury, right? And he had those times where he was playing a full amount of minutes, and he wasn't playing under a full workload, right? And then you finally get to see him with 30 plus minutes of action, right? And he's creeping there, and then he gets injured again. My whole thing from the start on the injury situation and what's going on with the Bucks is they needed, and when I say they, I'm talking about Giannis, Dame, and Chris. They really needed as a unit to play a lot of games together. And my question now is, with Doc Rivers finally getting this thing on the upward swing, where does Chris fit in? Like, how do you fit yourself back in to what's going on?
So the first thing that I'll say though, right, and you guys know this, right? Again, home of Packers Radio, we talk about this all the time. The thing that'll zap a player's explosiveness, it's those ankle, knee, and hip injuries. That 100% will do it, right? You start having an issue with one of those, and you will, and it just is never the same if it continues to happen. So the thing about Chris Middleton is this, right? He was averaging about 26 minutes a game, which is like the third lowest of his career. He had that long ramp up in the beginning, but we were able, as long as Chris was shooting the ball, right? Because Chris was shooting the ball as well as anybody, and especially mid-range, 100% there. As long as he was able to do that, he was able to have a niche and he was able to be impactful in this lineup. At this point, I agree with you. I would like to see him come off the bench initially. The reason being is that I think you've gotten into a bit of a groove with Crowder in his slot, and it feels as if, like, between Dame, Beasley, and Crowder, we may be okay on the perimeter, right? We have something that I think can work. Having said that, Chris coming off the bench and flushing this out with the second unit, Chris and Pat. So second unit, what's that look like? Chris, Pat, Bobby Portis. Obviously, Brooke G may still be in there, right? You still may have Beasley in there as well, because again, Doc is redshirting Andre Jackson Jr., Derry Bird, Marjan, and Co. But it might be a really, really, really good look for him. And maybe you say, listen, Chris, you'll come off the bench and you'll play 22, 23 minutes if you've got it, right? But I do start to wonder with these injuries, if conditioning is going to be an issue, because if conditioning is an issue, what's that lead to? Soft tissue injuries, right? And at some point, it's like, man, is this going to be something that we just have to manage throughout the playoffs? I don't know. It certainly may be, but I don't think it's worth disrupting what this team is doing now, especially post All-Star game, by forcing Chris back into the lineup at this point and expecting him to play. His season average is like 26.3 minutes, expecting him to do that right away.
So you think that Chris should come back as, like, either you're saying 6-man, or you're saying just in a limited role capacity wise until he can build up that energy to play?
100% initially, yes, right? Initially. Okay. Now, I get it. At a certain point, you may, after 5-10 games, say, all right, listen, we need to put them back in the lineup and see if we can't get these boys to run together for the remaining 10 straight games or wherever, leading into the playoffs. But yeah, I just don't think you rush him back. And why not see how he looks with that second unit, right? If he looks phenomenal, maybe you just leave it that way.
And that may be something that happens. Let's go to the phone lines. Kavika from Maui, our guy from Maui. Remember him? All the times on his Bucks in 60 games. Kavika from Maui, what's going on? You're on Bucks in 60.
It's Kavika, but anyway.
Sorry, my bad.
Sorry about that. Kavika.
Aloha, guys. Yeah, I Chris Middleton is taking this a little too far. I think he's milking it. I don't know if he's still upset about, giving up some of his money, restructuring his contract, but he's always hurt. The last 2 years, it's ridiculous. They're probably, I don't know if they're thinking that they want him healthy for the playoffs, but they also need to secure the second spot in the East. And I think Doc, honestly, is pushing him to come back more than maybe Bud would, because it just seems like that's the kind of guy he is. And yeah, that's my thought.
Kavika, when you say he's milking it, you dropped him. Okay, well, I don't know that he's milking it. Might be, and I don't think when you say when I hear milking it, I guess I wonder, are we talking about Chris Middleton? Or are we talking about the medical team from the Milwaukee Bucks who want to make sure? Because I don't know. Chris Middleton, like, he's not Ben Simmons, right? He doesn't serve me as a guy that I think is like, yeah, I don't want to play. I'm upset about something. I don't know. I don't get that vibe from Chris Middleton. I legitimately think, again, it's documented. He has a ton of injuries. Like, he is an injury riddled player at this point. Like, he has legitimate injury designations and concerns. And I don't know. I wouldn't call him. I wouldn't consider it. It's my opinion. I wouldn't consider him milking them, but I do think maybe the medical staff may be a little more cautious with them coming back. My whole thing about him playing is just I think they need that chemistry on court together as much as possible. I think that is what is killed teams like Brooklyn when they try to bring their big three together. I think that kills teams that try to come together, especially really fast in the first year and get something done. Again, the Bucks window for this group is short. I think Dane Yaz extended a little more. But, when you add Chris and Brooke, I think, again, I've said it before. I think if the Bucks don't win a title this year or, like I said, come short of losing to Boston in 7, I think you're going to see, again, just like you saw one member of that core 4, Drew Holiday, gone, I think you'll see another member at least gone, either Chris or Brooke Lopez, out of Milwaukee next year.
Yeah, listen, I would, to respond to Kavika's comment, I don't think he's milking it. What I do think, though, is that injury-prone players keep getting injured. Right, you don't get more healthy the older you get.
Yep,
right,
yep.
Especially when you have these injuries here, these different knee injuries, just weird kind of unique thing like that just does not happen. Right. So at what point does the organization say we have to, I guess, minimize the minutes he plays, but maximize the output that we get from Chris, if that makes sense, right? Like it's a tough spot to be in, and that's not a position I would for any coach, right? But at this point, you have to acknowledge this guy is injury prone, and what we talk about, what's your best ability, Trey?
Availability,
right? And if you're not available, you can't be reliable, right?
Yeah.
And those are two things that you need to win a championship: is available and reliable players, right? So at this point, we got to treat Chris a little bit like he's a luxury, right? Where nice to have, and we would love to have him, right? But if we got to make this trip cross country, we can't depend on him, right? And that's unfortunate because Chris Middleton has been so great for the Bucks for the longest time. However, that's the reality. So at this point, we got to adjust.
Eric Nemo, the Athletic, said on Twitter, says before the Bucks went to Charlotte last Thursday, Doc Rivers suggested that Chris Middleton was close to being active tonight. They asked Doc Rivers if that meant Middleton suffered a setback, obviously because he has not played now in the 2 games since then. Doc Rivers said no, he's just not ready. He's close. Do we expect him on this trip? We're hoping, but again, if it's just not 100% for us, we're just not willing to push it right now. There's no need to. Again, I take the total opposite approach. I guess not really. Not if he's not ready to play, but I'm telling you, you've got to get the reps. And when you bring in a new coach, a new system, and everything, like Chris has only played like what 2 games off the road trip in the Doc Rivers, in the Doc era. Like I really think you have to have that bond, that chemistry together with that big 3 guys that you got. And again, you're not seeing it. So I think that may prove to be a fatal flaw, especially when you look at a team like Boston, whose core has been playing, who Kristaps Porzingis has had a pretty good. He's been healthy and or at least healthy enough, and has played with Boston. So again, we'll see if that comes back to bite the Bucks with Chris Middleton. And break here. Let's take a break here, and we'll come back. We'll finish up the show. 414-799-1973.
7-3.
Let's see. We get to one text in here from JB in the 920 says, just say it. Dame wants to be anywhere else. And he says we won't ever win a championship with big hassle and energy in ownership. I disagree with it. We'll talk about that. We got Jimmy Haslem. Again, he's shut out a lot of money to make sure this thing continues rolling. So we'll see about that. We'll come back. We'll finish up the show. Bucks and 6 keep throwing right. Yeah, Glow. Yeah, Glow. Yeah, Glow.
Nah, I'm not even hyping this up.
Yeah, Glow.
We're shooting a shot at Damian Lillard. And stay away from that. We
Ah,
don't need that. That'll make a bad
Glorilla.
situation worse. No,
Yeah,
sir.
hey, that sounds like that's what Dame needs. Hey, I'm on
No.
whatever Dame needs to get him happy and Glorilla's flow. Get it, hey, whatever you gotta do. I need to hit. I need to
Dame
hit.
needs
That's all I know.
is a weekend trip down to Miami. Look at the PBL. Go ahead, a little bit back. Come right on back up. Stay in the club till 5 a.m. if you want to. Come right on back up.
Can't go home with Glorilla. Can't go home with Big Flow.
I don't know, man. Some of the rumors about her. I don't know about her.
You always know the rumors. I don't know the rumors. I'm not in the shade. I don't know.
Yeah,
We are back live, Bucks in 60. The Bucks taking on the Los Angeles Clippers tonight in the five-star form. Nasty weather going on in Milwaukee, so be safe as you travel in to the area, to the arena. John Tyus, no Giannis tonight. No Chris Middleton. We talked about it. It's just Damian Lillard out there. Obviously, he's starting. Pat Connaughton starting tonight. Jay Crowder. Those guys all in the building. What are you expecting? Are the Bucks? I mean, I think we talked about, and we've mentioned a lot about Damian Lillard tonight. This could be a statement game for Damian Lillard, even if the Bucks lose. Because I mean, I think you would expect with no Giannis and no Chris that this. I'm not gonna say get out of hand because the Bucks win. Absolutely, they could. But again, the expectations are not the same as when Giannis is out there on the floor. We all understand that. But Damian Lillard could make a statement tonight by not laying an egg, by going out there and putting on a show for the fans of Milwaukee. Even if the Bucks don't win this game, what are you expecting from Milwaukee? What are you expecting from Damian Lillard tonight?
Taking down the fourth seeded Clippers, right? Aren't they fourth in the West right now? Taking them down shorthanded, right, without Giannis and Chris, that would be significant, especially if Dame puts his team on his back. So I want to see one of two things. I either want to see Dame go crazy and go for 35 plus, or I want to see this team be an effort in the aggregate, right? And so I want to see Bobby doing his part. I want to see Beasley doing his part, Brook doing his part as well, Crowder giving contributions, Beverly giving contributions, Derek Bird hitting shots. Either way, though, I will be happy with either one of those outcomes.
Yeah, and again, you have to think that this is, again, it could be a statement game from Damian Lillard. I mean, he's got to be ready to go tonight. Again, now LA Clippers are on a back-to-back, so you do have that going for you, and there's potential that maybe they have some tired legs as they make this trip to Milwaukee tonight. John, I want to ask you this: as we continue rolling on here. Doc Rivers and what he's done so far with this basketball team. You're also seeing what's happening with the Boston Celtics on the other side. Is this a two-team race out in the East? And do you believe in Doc Rivers to be as the guy that could get this done if the Bucks do end up in a series with the Boston Celtics?
So the only reason why I can't say this is a two-team race in the East, right? And when you say two-team race in the East, let me first ask you this question. Okay. Do you mean like chance for two teams having a chance of winning the East, or like regular season, like finishing in the 1 seed?
No. I'm talking about postseason, making it out of the East. That's what I mean by two-team race.
Yeah, I'd like to think it's the Bucks and Celtics, right? I don't want to ignore the Cavaliers, right? Because I think they do a lot of really, really, really good things. Having said that, the Cavaliers don't scare me. Right, they're a good team. They've got a lot
and Donovan Mitchell just had another injury, and so he's going to be out for at least another 3 games. Just point that out, Donovan, and he's had a couple injuries throughout the year. But go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know that. Right, so that's another issue. The Cavaliers are a good team that don't scare me, right? Because I just feel like if the Bucks are clicking on full cylinders and they're matched up with the Cavaliers, I don't think that game is close, despite the defensive presence that Cleveland may have. Right, I think that the Bucks have enough talent and coaching experience to win a series with Cleveland. I don't even think that's going to be a problem. Honestly, if the Bucks are playing at their best, that series doesn't go to 7 games. I don't even see that happening. So yeah, I'd argue with you. You probably are looking at a 2-team race out in the East.
Tonight it's the Clippers, and we have a very fun week in Bucks basketball before we get back on the air next Monday with another edition of Bucks in 60. But it's Clippers, Warriors. So it's Clippers at home, Warriors on the road, Lakers on the road, Clippers again on the road Sunday. So again, it's a tough stretch. We talked about prior to this. The Bucks have and so I got to give Doc Rivers a ton of credit. Because what did we talk about? Hey, you got to run through these teams. The schedule is soft until you hit the early part of March. You got to run through it. And what did Doc Rivers do? He stumbled a bit, losing to Miami, losing to Memphis before the break. But right after the break, the Bucks came out on all cylinders. Boom, they beat down. They win 5. They win 5 in a row. Now you have a tough part of your schedule coming up here with 5 teams, 5 games against. I mean, again, I know Golden State and the Lakers are both right now in the play-in, but those teams have premier players. You're dealing with injuries. Who knows how long Giannis is going to be out? Who knows when Chris comes back? Doc Rivers said he wants him for this road trip, but on our reality, we don't know. Now, again, this does bode well. I do think for Giannis, as long as it's a minor injury here, because the Bucks haven't played until Friday. So because the Bucks have not played until Friday, the Bucks haven't played since Friday. So he will have, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. He will have almost 5 days off, right? And since he's played to get back from this injury tonight and be ready for full go against the Warriors. So I kind of expect he's going to play against Golden State on the road. But what are you expecting in these next 1, 2, 3, 4 games? Clippers, Warriors, Lakers, Clippers.
If Giannis doesn't play, right? If Giannis is out, let's say Giannis is out this week, right? But we have nothing in front of us that indicates that that's going to happen, right? Yeah. But I will say that when you have a player like Giannis and he's got Achilles tendonitis, listen, man, the thought and fear of a partial tear and or complete rupture happening is significant, and so you cannot play with that. If he needs the rest and that tendonitis is flaring up, then you let that happen. If Giannis doesn't play, I'd be happy if they win 2 games out of the stretch if Giannis doesn't play, right? Now, if Giannis does play, then I'm expecting this team to go 4 or 5, right? I certainly think, obviously tonight he's not going to play, that may impact this, but I think they can beat the Warriors certainly on Wednesday. They can turn around, they can beat the Lakers on Friday as well. Right? People were talking about the Lakers and Anthony Davis and LeBron clicking, but how often does that actually happen? Right? And how often does Anthony Davis clock in and actually do his job? I don't worry about that. Then, of course, you'll see the Clippers again next Sunday, which may be a test, and a hungry Kings team. But I think I'm expecting the Bucks to lose 1 game out of this stretch if Giannis plays, right, starting with the Warriors on Wednesday.
Yeah, and, it's interesting because you mentioned that Lakers team, and I watched them the other night, and it's just against Denver. And, Anthony Davis, it's one of those things where when he decides – this is what I think about Anthony Davis. I think that for whatever reason, he has tried to be a little more healthy. And so because he's wanted to be healthy and be on the floor, because Anthony Davis has played a ton of games this year. Remember, he's been a guy with a lot of injury concerns, a lot of injury history. And so because of that, he's not playing as dominant as he would normally play. I think he's playing not to get hurt. And I think he's out there. And so, yeah, you get some – again, every now and then he's going to go out there and remind you, hey, I can get you 30 and 20 whenever when I feel like I can do that. But so he does not always do that. So we'll see what Anthony Davis shows up. You know what LeBron does. I think you're right. I think tonight they probably lose to the Clippers. So, yeah, I wish Giannis was available. But I'll give it on one. I'll give it to – I'll say that they split these next 4 games, Clippers, Warriors, Lakers, Clippers. But, again, everybody's going to be interested tonight with what happens. And, again, I'm looking to see Damian Lillard. I want to see him play very, very well tonight. Finishing up this program, going to be fun one if you're heading into the 5-serve. JT, in the final words.
Hey, guys, enjoy your week. Enjoy your week. And, look forward to seeing you guys next Monday. Check us out on T's and Q's. Typically runs on Saturday, starting at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. Check us out on the postgame tonight, Cream City Crossover.
Yes, sir. Cream City Crossover tonight after the Bucks Clippers. Don't take no wood nickels.
Remind me where I know you from. She looking like she always